Today's episode of the Gone Fission Nuclear Report is brought to you by Fluor. We're building a better world. Welcome to the Gone Fission Nuclear Report, your one-stop source for all the latest news from the Department of Energy's Environmental Management Program. Now, here's your host, Michael Butler.
Hello, and welcome to the Gone Fission Nuclear Report. Today is Monday, September 4th. It's Labor Day 2023. We're covering all the news from the Department of Energy's Environmental Management Program across the country. We thank our friends at Fluor for being presenting sponsor for today's episode. Yes, it's Labor Day, that day of the year when we pause to recognize and salute the working men and women of America. A few days ago, NASCAR legend Richard Petty published an op-ed in the Washington Post. In it, he made a statement that is fitting for today's observance. If you're able to work with your hands, he wrote, you'll never be out of work. Over the decades, thousands of workers have received this message loud and clear. They have built lucrative careers and comfortable lifestyles working with their hands. They're electricians, pipe fitters, sheet metal workers, welders, carpenters, painters, iron workers, and represent many other vital crafts. Many of them can be found in the 30,000-person workforce that is working daily to clean up Department of Energy sites around the country. Their skills hold the key to success in this multi-decade cleanup mission. Working in hazardous conditions, withering heat, bone-chilling cold, they bring their best every day, working safely to accomplish the environmental management cleanup mission. We honor those workers today and their brothers and sisters across the land who perform the daily labor that makes the world turn and the economy grow. To help us celebrate today, we have a very special guest. He is Sean McGarvey, President and CEO of North America's Building Trades Union in Washington, D.C. Mr. McGarvey joined us on our audio podcast last year. He was an impressive guest, and we're reprising his message this year for our video subscribers.
Well, I think that, communication is the biggest key, right? Because this is constantly evolving. Okay. We have craft that come to work, might work there for 10 or 15 years on that site and then retire. So we've got new craft coming in. We got to make sure that they have a full understanding of the facility, the site, the owner's requirements, the contractors, the expectations. To be a safe, productive craft worker on those sites. You have the same thing on the management side. You have contracts that expire, new contracts that are bid, new teams come in to take over operations, and making sure we're communicating and all on the same page with those folks. And then, of course, you have at the Department of Energy, a lot of the positions at the top are political positions. So when you have a new administration come in, and you have a new secretary, undersecretary, DepSec, you name it, who have responsibilities over these programs, we got to make sure that we're communicating with DOE and those teams so that they understand what we do, how we do it, how we're value added, and how all the work that we do jointly is in the best interest of the taxpayer and our environment.
Sean McGarvey will be back in an in-depth interview later in the podcast. Now let's learn more about how Labor Day got started. Here's a report.
Labor Day is a day for honoring America's workers and celebrating their contributions to everything we cherish about our country. The holiday is rooted in the vibrant labor movement of the late 19th century, when labor activists pushed for a federal holiday to recognize how ordinary workers from coast to coast built America's strength, prosperity, and well-being. In the beginning, labor activists called for wider recognition with parades, picnics, and speeches. The first recorded celebration of this kind took place on September 5, 1882, in New York City. The Central Labor Union organized a day of street parades, picnics, and parties to exhibit the strength and camaraderie of the trade and labor organizations in the community. Thousands marched from City Hall all the way to 42nd Street. The practice spread quickly across the nation. In 1887, only 5 years later, Oregon became the first U.S. state to make Labor Day an official public holiday. By 1894, 30 states were officially celebrating Labor Day. Congress acted to make Labor Day a federal holiday to be celebrated the first Monday in September. And on June 28, 1894, President Grover Cleveland signed the bill into law. Though the law only made Labor Day an official holiday for federal workers, over time, the holiday spread to all 50 states, the District of Columbia, and U.S. territories. And it now applies to all state and local government employees. Private employers generally recognize the day as a holiday, too. Working people are the backbone of our country and keep our economy moving. It's the U.S. Department of Labor's great privilege to carry on the spirit of those 19th century laborers who created Labor Day by celebrating and lifting up the contributions and importance of America's workers. For more information, visit dol.gov/Labor Day.
We'll be back after this from Fluor. Last year, former Secretary of Labor Marty Walsh gathered a few of his staff together for an impromptu Labor Day trivia contest. The results were quite interesting and somewhat entertaining. Keep in mind this was last year, so the date you'll hear them give for Labor Day is one day later than today's date, September 4th. Enjoy this trivia contest, emceed by the former Secretary of Labor, Marty Walsh.
I have no idea what.
Okay. Some labor activists founded labor.
I'm going to say the exact date of Labor Day is the 5th of September this year.
The actual day of Labor Day this year is a guess. I would say September 3rd.
Monday, September 5th, I think.
Well, I'm really glad that our leadership of the Department of Labor is very focused on when Labor Day is and the exact date, and Thea was right on.
Labor Day is an annual holiday to celebrate the achievements of the labor movement and workers in general, and things like the 40-hour work week, which we have organized labor to thank.
So Labor Day is an annual holiday to celebrate the achievements of the labor movement and workers around the country.
That was a tough question, so I'm glad you all kind of got it right. So I appreciate all your efforts in that one. And again, it makes me feel good that I'm the Secretary of Labor and we have such great people working collectively together that understand what Labor Day is all about.
The first state to make Labor Day a national holiday was Massachusetts.
Georgia, Maryland, California.
The first state to make Labor Day a national holiday, I will guess, was Massachusetts.
I'm going to say not Hawaii.
I'm going to guess New York and then New Jersey, maybe
North Dakota, South Dakota.
Massachusetts?
But probably my second guess, given our Secretary of Labor, would be Massachusetts.
Was the great state of Oregon, or Oregon, as some say.
Was that it? Was Massachusetts?
Oregon, of course.
It should have been Massachusetts, so I'll give credit to those folks that guessed 17 times Oregon. And I think, Brent, it's Oregon. And I learned that from my Boston accent when I was there. When I said Oregon, I got corrected. It's Oregon.
The president who made Labor Day a national holiday is, or was, I believe, Grover Cleveland. I could be wrong about that, but that's what I think.
I'm going to go with Taft. I don't remember.
The president that made Labor Day a national holiday is Grover Cleveland. I've read Jeff Freund's blog post, so got that far.
Well, Raj, I'm glad you read Jeff's blog post because he didn't know the answer. So he should have read his blog post before he got on there. So again, that's a good one. I certainly wouldn't have got that right.
Without a doubt, the first Labor Day celebration actually began pretty recently. It was during Secretary Walsh's tenure as mayor of Boston and began in City Hall.
Somewhere in Massachusetts, Boston.
Possibly Washington, D.C., maybe Chicago, but it had to have been American City.
Definitely Boston. I think it was in Boston.
The first Labor Day parade took place in New York City in 1882. It was organized by the Central Labor Council of New York City.
We're going to rewrite labor law to change New York City to Boston this year as the original Labor Day parade. But we really don't have a Labor Day parade in Boston, so it is New York City, of which I'll be the Grand Marshal this year of the Labor Day parade, which I'm pretty excited about. So I'll be walking down some street in New York with a New England Patriots hat on.
The founder of Labor Day was someone with the AFL.
I think it may have actually been Marty Walsh.
Some labor activists founded Labor Day.
I don't know who it was.
His last name was McGuire, but there were two different McGuires, each of whom is credited with having founded Labor Day.
I understand there's some disagreement about who founded Labor Day.
Well, there was a dispute between the McGuire and the Maguire.
Matt McGuire, and I can't remember the first name of the other McGuire.
But I think it was Mr. Maguire.
I didn't know that one either, but thank you, Ali, for giving that shout out, because if I created Labor Day, it would have been Labor Week.
We'll be back after this from Floor. We're back now with the highlight of today's Labor Day episode, our interview with Sean McGarvey, President and CEO of North America's Building Trades Union. You're about to meet a sincere man with a deep respect for the American worker. We're talking with Sean McGarvey, President of the North America's Building Trades Unions in Washington, D.C. Mr. McGarvey, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me.
Well, we're glad you're here today. This is our special Labor Day edition, and we want to talk to you about that. Let's start on a personal level. If you could tell us, what does Labor Day mean to you?
Well, Labor Day, to me personally, means, a reflection for the people that labor for a living, for, the masses of people that don't show up in newspaper headlines or on the news, that go out and have built this economy in this country, have built the middle class, have supported the less fortunate, have made people fabulously wealthy through their skills and work ethic. And it's the one day of the year that's for them. And the generations that came before to recognize that without them, without the working class in this country, there'd be no greatest democracy on the history of the earth in the United States of America. So making sure to take time and be thankful for those who came before us and what they built, and remaining focused on what we need to do as a working class to make sure that we get our fair share and we pass it on to the next generation.
How do you personally celebrate Labor Day? What are your plans for this year?
This year I don't actually have any plans, which is unusual. Most years I travel, to some city where I've been invited to participate in Labor Day activities. Sometimes there's, a big announcement on a piece of legislation or something. This year, there's been so many giant pieces of legislation since last Labor Day that it's probably impossible to do it in Labor Day weekend. But this year, I'm going to, spend a little time with my children and my grandchildren, and talk about how food gets put on the table and the roof gets put over our head. My kids have heard those stories and reflections for a long time, and now it's time for the grandkids to get a full understanding of what it means to work for a living in this country, and how you have to respect people that work no matter what job they perform. When they show up every day and they give it their best effort, they deserve our respect, not just on Labor Day, but every day. So that's what I'll be doing.
Well, that's a great lesson, and that makes you a good grandfather. Now, I understand that you have 4 grandchildren. Is that right?
That's true.
And 3 of them have sort of a liturgy of names. What are their names?
Lucas, Leah, and Liam.
And then there's a 4th one.
Yeah, our newest addition is Finnegan. Finnegan Sean McGarvey.
Finnegan Sean
McGarvey. Arrived back in April on the 26th. Very excited about him.
Well, congratulations, and
thank you.
That gives the name a legacy that lives on. I know you're happy about that.
I certainly am.
Well, for our listeners who may not know, tell us what North America's Building Trades Unions is all about. Who do you represent? How many members do you have? What are the kinds of services and benefits you offer to your members? Just give us an overview of NAB2.
All right. NAB2 is an umbrella organization for the 15 unions, predominant unions in the construction industry in the United States and Canada. And we're kind of a central clearinghouse. So we work on issues that benefit all of the unions, issues that are not germane to one union or 2 unions, but basically all 15 construction unions. And we work on legislative and regulatory issues. We have a council structure that mirrors our national structure of about 330 state, provincial, and local councils across the United States and Canada, where they conduct the similar type business on a local level for the crafts in construction in that geographic area. So we work on training. We put together apprenticeship readiness programs across the United States and Canada, which are targeted to communities of color, women, veterans. Helmets or Hard Hats is our veterans program, and try to create pathways into the middle class through our construction craft training and our registered apprenticeship programs. It's a very big part of what we do. We do national and international labor relations. So we interface with the buyers of construction services. We have national labor management committees with the oil and gas folks, with the petrochemical industry, with the nuclear industry, with the pharmaceutical industry, with the American Investment Council, who buys through their member companies lots of companies across the United States and Canada, and also does quite a bit of construction. We do government relations. We work with state and local governments, regional entities across both countries on workforce development issues, on infrastructure investment issues, things that are going to generate economic activity. We have big footprint in capital strategies, which is a recognition of our $800 billion or so dollars in our pension funds, and tracking how they're invested, who they're invested with, and making sure that the companies that we own have real recognition for the rights of working people, in particular construction workers in the United States and Canada. We have a registered apprenticeship system in the United States, where our locals from our affiliated internationals have 1,600 training centers and spend about $2 billion a year of members' money to train the next generation workforce and to upskill existing members into the next and newest technologies. We also have a 501c3 called the Center for Construction Research and Training, which is the largest construction health and safety research and training operation in the world, where we teach train the trainer programs. We do research on industry health and safety issues and come up with solutions to problems. We do this for our existing 3 million members and their families to make sure that the benefits of union membership in the building trades provides them every opportunity to maintain their economic standing in the middle class, keep them in the middle class, and for sure make sure they're as prepared as possible in a dangerous industry to arrive at work in the morning, perform their skilled craft work for the day, and then arrive back at their home with their family at night without injury. So that's predominantly what we focus on.
Well, that's a huge array of activities and services. So it looks like it covers about everything that a union member would expect and want from the unions that they're members of. Why was there, give us a little history on why your organization was formed. Why was there a need for a group like NABTU as an umbrella organization?
We were formed in 1908, and our forefathers, needed a better way to communicate best practices, build relationships across industries. And individually, it's difficult with all the other issues that you need to focus on in representation of the members to work on those things. And NABTU was founded in 1908, so it could be the coordinating arm of those unions to focus on those relationships, building them, creating opportunity across all the crafts. And so we're 114 years old. It's been a really great and recognized institution that performs real benefit for the participating unions, their members, but also the industries in which we work, government entities and others who we can be dependent upon to be a full partner.
I want to talk about your involvement with the Department of Energy and the Environmental Management Program. EM is cleaning up former Manhattan Project and Cold War sites around the nation. The crafts at these sites work under very hazardous conditions, as you know. They're in radioactive and chemical environments. There's withering heat. There's a bone-chilling cold. They've worked through a pandemic. Talk about worker safety and what NABTU does to ensure the safety of workers on the job site.
Well, first of all, Department of Energy is our biggest client. We've been working with the Department of Energy for decades and decades. As a matter of fact, before the department was actually a department, we were called upon as part of the war effort to build out the Manhattan Project. And then subsequent to all the advancements in nuclear weapons, when the facility started to need to be brought down and cleaned up, we were called upon it again to do that work and have been doing that work for decades. Construction is a hazardous occupation on a regular day, whether you're building a home, a gas station, a school, or a high rise. But there's special circumstances in the environmental management cleanup operations on DOE sites across the United States. So through our construction research and training program, we certify trainers that teach about 18 or 19 OSHA protocols, confined space, scaffold training, all the things that are important to keeping us safe on DOE sites, respirator fit and training, and many others. We do that in conjunction with our contractors, and then meet the requirements of the special PPE on the DOE sites by working with DOE, by working with our contractors, and making sure that our members, before they set foot on that site, have the best in class training to prepare them for the hazards that they'll encounter that are unique to DOE sites. So we spend a lot of time, effort, cooperate fully with our tripartite partners on making sure that every health and safety protocol that is called for, that our people are certified in, so that we mitigate as best we can any hazards that they're going to encounter on that site.
In the case of DOE, some of these cleanup projects are expected to last for decades. I quite, at EM, told a congressional committee a few days ago that in the case of Hanford, we could be working there for another 60 years or so. And I know that with the current workforce, there's concerns about aging and workers looking forward to retirement. What is NAB2 doing to help ensure there are enough trained workers to carry on the cleanup mission in the future?
Well, generally speaking, we recruit based upon projections of what the workforce needs are going to be, in a geographic area. So at the local union level, through the Joint Apprenticeship Training Committee, which is made up of management and labor, they'll project out what the demands are, and then they'll recruit based on those demands to make sure that there's enough people in the pipeline to meet the demands. And as you know, we are not held hostage, but part of the appropriations process for this work. So it ebbs and flows, and you can never be quite sure what the funding level is going to be and what the actual Skillcraft numbers that'll be required to execute those appropriations with our contractors for DOE. So close attention is paid to that on local level, but we also work on the local level with our building trades councils, our contractor partners, and the communities where these facilities are geographically located, to try to create a pipeline of additional people that are interested in the industry from around these communities, which we call apprenticeship readiness programs, which are targeted to communities of color, women, veterans, in some cases formerly incarcerated, working with the community to recruit those folks, get them into a 6 to 8 week program to prepare them to go into registered apprenticeship, and then go to work on site once they become registered apprentice. And in most cases, in a lot of cases, they finish their 3 to 5 year training program while they're working at those sites. So we have not encountered really many problems, in particular on DOE reservations, because in and around the communities there, they know, as you mentioned earlier, in the case of Hanford, there's 60 years worth of work opportunities there. So we're talking about a couple generations of future craft workers in and around that area to support Hanford and the activities on the cleanup. We have a couple of programs that we are currently running down at Oak Ridge with Bechtel and Ucor, where we're recruiting with our community partners folks to come into registered apprenticeship. So we have resources to target those needs and to satisfy the demands of our contractor partners and our customer DOE to make sure that it's a continuous pipeline of skilled people with the safety prerequisites to be productive on those sites and get that cleanup done for our environment and for the taxpayer.
I'm familiar with the apprenticeship readiness program that you did with Ucor and Oak Ridge in the last several years, and working with Ken Reuter and the Lynn Morgan and the Ucor team down there. That was a very successful program, and I think UCOR ended up hiring all or most all of the apprentices who came out of that training program.
Yeah, that's true. Ken is a real partner for us here at the Building Trades. We work really closely with Ken. As a matter of fact, Ken is a board member on our Construction Research Health and Safety Training Operations, CPWR. So we're always working with Ken and UCOR on best practices that they're establishing, supporting what they're doing through CPWR. And then on the apprenticeship readiness side, they fully embrace creating these opportunities for lots of folks, quite honestly, haven't had a lot of opportunity in their family and generations. And this is a real opportunity through these investments that are being made by the taxpayer to clean up these facilities through contractors like UCOR and our training to put them on the path to the middle class, which changes the whole trajectory of that family and changes whole communities. So we have 180 of those programs thereabout going across the United States, and some of them are targeted directly with Department of Energy.
Well, that's very impressive. I'd like to talk to you now about the relationship among DOE, the prime contractors, and the union, NAB2. I see statements coming out of the major DOE contractors where they're praising their partnership with NAB2 and other unions. They feel like it's something that's really helping them in terms of providing the necessary workforce, enhancing worker safety, making sure that the mission gets completed. How would you characterize NAB2's working relationship with DOE and its major contractors?
Well, in general, with buyers of construction services and our partner contractors, we have established and feel that the best practice for us is a tripartite relationship where we sit down as a triumvirate, on a regular basis to look at what's coming up, issues, problems that we're having, whatever the case may be, and coming together with the owner, DOE, with the contractor and us to come up with solutions that are in the best interest of all three. We also work on the regulatory and appropriations issues here in Washington. We might work on legislative and regulatory issues in states where the facilities are located. And it's important that we speak with one voice when we do that kind of work so that everybody knows that we're on the same team. We all have the same goal to quickly and efficiently and safely clean up these sites and work together to make that happen. So I'm not shocked that you hear positive statements from contractors. The construction industry is a little different than most industries, organized industries, and we're in the most competitive industry, in the United States in construction because every project has to be bid on, and the successful bidder then has to perform on the bid that they made. And having a cooperative relationship with the workforce helps them achieve a successful project and leads them to bidding other projects. And we understand that from the time we're apprentices that, our contractors need to be competitive. We need to perform. We need to be productive and safe on work sites that owners like DOE demands. And at the end of the day, it's a win-win-win. So we are always focused on how to be faster, safer, better, and create more opportunities for our members after we complete a successful project. And that means working very, very closely with our contractors and the buyer of those construction services, which in this case is DOE.
What do you see now as your major challenges? What's on the top of your to-do list in terms of improving the workers' position on EM sites, or what kind of things are you thinking about that need to be done better?
Well, I think that communication is the biggest key, right? Because this this is constantly evolving. Okay, we have craft that come to work, might work there for 10 or 15 years on that site and then retire. So we've got new craft coming in. We got to make sure that they have a full understanding of the facility, the site, the owner's requirements, the contractors, the expectations to be a safe, productive craft worker on those sites. You have the same thing on the management side. You have contracts that expire, new contracts that are bid, new teams come in to take over operations, and making sure we're communicating and on the same page with those folks. And then, of course, you have, at the Department of Energy, a lot of the positions at the top are political positions. So when you have a new administration come in and you have a new secretary, undersecretary, DepSec, you name it, who have responsibilities over these programs, we got to make sure that we're communicating with DOE and those teams so that they understand what we do, how we do it, how we're value added, and how all the work that we do jointly is in the best interest of the taxpayer and our environment. So I would say that, communications never goes out the window. It's always the most important thing we do. And that's how you build relationships and trust, by talking with people.
Well, that's very well said. I would certainly agree with that. That's so true in so many things that we deal with. Communications is the key. Overall, there's been a decline in union membership over the past couple of decades. The Bureau of Labor Statistics says there are about 14 million union members now, with about 240,000 being lost in 2021. How do you account for that downturn, and what is NABTU doing to, as we say, communicate the benefits of union membership?
Well, let me say first of all that there's numbers and there's subsets of numbers, right? So if you just carve out the construction part of that number, half of construction in the United States is single family housing. All right, we do not do a lot of single family housing anymore. It's part of the industry that is uber competitive. There are all kinds of issues that have driven wage and safety standards down in that industry and make it impossible in many cases to compete with contractors and builders who have an independent contractor set up where people are their own entrepreneurs, are responsible for their own workman's compensation, paying both ends of their FICA taxes, et cetera, et cetera. It's not a good scenario for the most part in the home building. So when you exclude home building and you exclude the professionals, architects, engineers, et cetera, our share of the market is about 46% of all construction in the United States outside of home building. When you go into heavy industrial, which DOE and think power, petrochem, those kinds of things, our market share is up in the high 60s. And the fact of the matter is, since 2014, we have grown by over 500,000 members. We have about 6 or 7 of our 15 crafts that are now at their all-time high in construction membership. So when you break those numbers out a little bit, it's not as dire in the construction industry for the organized construction industry as it is in some other areas like manufacturing and other places that recently a lot's been done to bring that back with this administration and this Congress, but they've been decimated over the years. So we're growing. We've been growing for the last 7 or 8 years when we come out of the last recession. And we finally have a situation in the United States, I believe, where the push to send kids to college and everything that comes with that, including school debt, and in a lot of cases, chosen professions where you can't actually provide for a family and maintain a place in the middle class because that chosen profession, which that degree was garnered in, doesn't have the economics attached to it. Where, in fact, in the construction industry, in not all, but most cases, the unionized industry, once you become a journey level skilled craft person, your skill sets that you now have that nobody can take away from you can keep you in the middle class for your entire life and provide for post-retirement security for your family through pension benefits. So now that people are in the academia world and others in government are saying, well, wait a minute, everybody has to go to college or they're not successful, might not be the right formula. And they're starting to point to us and these jobs. And just as an aside with that, through our apprenticeship, registered apprenticeship programs in the United States, in not all, but almost all of them, when you graduate, you have built yourself an accreditation of a 2-year degree. In some cases, some of our training centers and operations are their own accredited community colleges. So you can get out of your apprenticeship, get your associate's degree, and then we have articulation agreements with 4-year universities where you can go on, if you choose, through distance learning and go for your bachelor's, okay? And all the time earning while you learn, learning skill sets that last a lifetime. And in our case at NAB2, we have a program that we run in conjunction with Rowan University in New Jersey, which is one of the top 5 engineering schools in the country. It's a construction project management program. And we've, graduating decent numbers every year of our members that have gotten that associate's degree through their apprenticeship program and then gone on to this distance learning program with NAB2, getting a construction management bachelor's degree. So again, communication is key here, communicating all the benefits and all the opportunities in this industry through the unionized industry. And then the sky's the limit. You want to become an entrepreneur, you want to open up your own business, we'll help you. We have programs to help instruct people how to get started in business. We have help to help them finance themselves. We have help programs to help them get themselves bonded, which is a real heavy hurdle for these aspiring contractors to get over. So communicating all those things in general makes us attractive. But the change in attitude in the country, especially coming through the pandemic, really changed a lot of people's minds about what career paths look like, what success in America looks like, and success in America looks a lot like the unionized building trades.
You mentioned that there were 6 or 7 crafts, I think you said, that have shown an increase in the numbers of in your numbers. What can you tell me? What examples of what those crafts are? Who's doing well in terms of increasing opportunities in these specific crafts?
Oh, IBW, electricians, United Association, plumbers and pipe fitters, laborers, operating engineers. Again, we're sometimes held to the cyclical nature of the economy when it comes to construction. But on top of that, these unions and all the unions in the building trades and NAB2 itself, made a real concerted effort to change our approach to business back in the early 2000s, which has made us value added to the buyers of construction services and contractors who were already signatory with, others we became signatory with. And that created opportunities for us to grow. And we have grown. And the skill sets are in demand. They're going to be in demand. And there's no place else really to go in the United States or around the world to get the kinds of numbers of skilled craft professionals that you need other than with the building trades. What I failed to mention earlier, when I said we have 1,600 training centers, we have 250,000 people in our training program across the 15 crafts across the United States. We spend $2 billion a year of our money. If we were a K through 12 school district, we'd be the 5th largest school district in the United States. And if we were a state university system, we would be the third largest in the United States after University of California and SUNY New York. We're 5 times the size of Ohio State in our training programs. On top of that, there's only one institution in the world that trains people in hard skill sets more than we do, and that's the United States military. Other than that, it's us.
Well, that's super impressive. I'm really glad you shared that. Well, it's Labor Day, and if you had your 3 million members in one location and could give them a message today, what would that message be?
That message would be thank you. What the world and our country in North America has been through in the last 2.5 years is hard to imagine that anybody could ever write a screenplay about it, and people would go to the movie and say, yeah, that could happen, but it did. And I want to say thank you to my members, because when the world shut down on March 13th of 2020, everybody went to their homes. We quickly worked with states around the country to get construction deemed essential. And our members quickly went back to work. Okay. We did the refueling at nuclear facilities, with 2,000 members, getting them in, getting those facilities refueled, getting them back online, providing power where we needed it, keeping our roads and bridges functioning for first responders and for those that are moving supplies and materials to where the country needed it, converting regular hospital rooms into ICU rooms, building temporary hospitals, and in some cases, temporary morgues. It was the finest hour for NAB2 and the members that were privileged to represent. And those men and women went and did that every day, not sure that the protocols were proper, not sure that they were going to get infected and bring infection home. They slept in their garages, they slept in their cars, and they did it day in, day out. And for that, I'm immensely proud and thankful that these patriots, real patriots, did what was required when their country needed them. And they'll never get enough thanks, but I want them to know that I thank them, not only for NAB2, but for my family and for my country. So thank you to the 3 million families that kept us going and stepped up when we really needed them. That's my message to them.
Well, that's excellent. What else? Is there anything else? We've talked about a lot. Is there anything else you'd like our listeners to know that we haven't covered?
No, I think that, this isn't your grandfather's building trades. And there are opportunities to learn skill sets to last a lifetime, to make a phenomenal living, live in the middle class. You're going to work hard. It's going to be cold. It's going to be hot sometimes, but it's an immensely satisfying profession. And come join us.
Sean, I want to wish you a very happy Labor Day, and thank you very much for joining us on the podcast today.
Thanks for having me, and have a great Labor Day to you and all your people.
Today's episode of the Gone Fission Nuclear Report is brought to you by Fluor. We're building a better world.